introduce this gentleman to you, and it's always a pleasure. And as I mentioned, probably an example of how Heat culture has actually, and there he is, the handsome one himself. It seeped into the booth. I believe you do epitomize Heat culture, Eric Reid, with your work ethic and your approach, and the way that you always inspire me to think, yes, we're in there with a chance. Eric Reid, play-by-play voice of the Miami Heat. How are you, my friend? You're looking good.
Yeah, doing great, Defo. Nice to start the day on your program.
Oh, very good. And you said that with, the same kind of sincerity that Lubie was using when he was saying, "Oh yeah, I think we can beat the Celtics. They're not that good of a team." Well, what do you've seen everything. You've been there since the beginning. You've seen it all. Have you seen anything quite like this?
No.
Or is it all different in its own way?
Nothing even remotely close to this. And think about it. It's the seventh Eastern Conference title, seventh trip to the NBA Finals. But the first one, it's unique. It's been a joyful journey. And I would say in the playoffs, the only time we've made it this far, unencumbered by the heavy expectations that usually accompany a team that's this good and gets this far. There were always expectations of the Heat in 06 with Dwayne and Shaq, the 4 straight years in the finals with 3 guys you're all well acquainted with, LeBron, Dwayne, and CB. This was totally unexpected. A Heat team that just managed to qualify for the playoffs, winning the second of 2 playoff games after losing at home to Atlanta and almost not making it. So they have defied statistics and odds makers. Deep, I know you're a fan of that part of the sport. Underdogs in 17 of the 18 playoff games they've been in. So undaunted. I'm calling them the underdog with the overbite, and not done yet. They are not the least bit satisfied. So it's been an incredible run. And, listen, you talk about, I don't know if Heat culture has ever been illuminated this well, where it's so undeniable with this cast of players and this route that they took, knocking off the top seed in the Bucks, knocking off the team with the second best record in the league in the Celtics, after almost becoming, on the wrong end of history. With that 3-0 lead, all of a sudden the series gets tied at 3. And Defo, the way it got tied, with the most soul-crushing loss in the history of the franchise. I mean, more painful than the Allen Houston shot. That was in the first round.
Yes.
This was, a tenth of a second away from punching your ticket to the NBA Finals. And to lose a game in that painful fashion and to come back 48 hours later and do what they did, I thought, other than June 20th, 06, winning their first championship at Dallas, I put that win in Game 7 at Boston right up there with that first championship victory as the most spectacular win in Heat history. And you got to put Game 6 against the Spurs and Game 7 against the Spurs. Those are your top games ever. But this last one, Defo, so meaningful and so memorable. And what they did was erase what would have been the most painful moment in the history of the franchise, the Derek White tip-in with a tenth of a second left. Yes. You know what that's become now? Sort of a testament of all that Miami has had to overcome to get to where they are. So unique and special, and still, 4 games left to win against a team that nobody's given Miami a chance against, which is just perfect for the script they are reading and following and writing.
Yeah, exactly where you would want to be if you're playing with that kind of attitude. That go ahead and discount us, and that has been a gift. I mean, the number of games where the Heat have beaten the spread and been overwhelming underdogs in games where you thought, wait a minute, who made this line? It's almost better than getting under the table cash at a Miami City Hall meeting. I mean, just the money that's being accumulated by the faithful South Florida fans, including my son, who took the Heat when I believe this was after the Knicks series. We're still 16-1 to win the championship. So he's faced now with the ultimate question. It's not why is this night different from all other nights in the Jewish tradition? But to hedge or not to hedge. At 40, he can make his own decision, though, Eric. I can assure you. I mean, the magic question.
You definitely brought the right baby home from the hospital.
That's what he texted me the other day. He's at Disney World. He goes, "Do I hedge, Dad?" I'm like, "I don't know, about 4-1. May as well just ride this one out and hope you cash with the Heat." So I mean, everybody's asking what the hell happened out there. I mean, and we had to do a great amount of research, Eric, and we went all the way back to like ancient Chinese proverbs on this. And, analyzing all the Hubie Brown sabermetrics and everything, it came to us that he who makes shots wins game. And all of a sudden, you can use that if you want, if you're going to do some play-by-play. He who makes shots wins game. That might get you in a jackpot on, terrestrial television there. But and all of a sudden, he can shoot. So is there anything, I mean, distinctive there? I mean, were guys hurting? Whether a bunch of rotator cuff tears or something during the regular season? A great shooting team from a year ago became bricklayers, and now they've resurrected themselves and are back on their game.
It's part of the story of this season. When you look at the regular season, the Heat were the lowest scoring team in the league at 109.5 points a game. They were in the bottom 3 or 4 in both field goal percentage and three-point percentage. It was hard to explain. There were nights where it was difficult to watch. I'm not, listen, if you listen to Coach Spoelstra and you really paid attention to the statistics over the last 15 or 20 games, what he was saying was true, that, the Heat were trending in an improved direction on the offensive end late in the season. But to average 124 points a game in the Bucks series and just simply outscore and outplay the team that had the most wins in the NBA. Okay, then they go to the Knicks series. And that played like, we stepped back into the time tunnel and went back to 97 through 2000. I mean, the Heat averaged 104 in that series, but held the Knicks to 100. So it played like it used to play. And then the Celtics series, I mean, ESPN analytics gave Miami a 3% chance. First of all, how Miami,
whose numbers were they looking at?
I don't know. But, the Heat-Knicks series, the Knicks' best way to beat you was offensive rebounding. They beat Cleveland in 5 games while shooting just 42% because they crashed the offensive board and cashed in on second chance points. The Heat neutralized that. We move on to the conference finals. What do the Celtics do best? Shoot the 3. Miami basically unplugged that, and you saw how Boston struggled early in the series from 3, and in the last 2 games, they were like 20% from 3. So the Heat have a great way of taking away strengths. But I want to get back to your original question. How have the Heat righted themselves offensively? Listen, the loss of Tyler Hero, it hurt in a lot of ways. It helped in one particular way. I think it simplified the offense. And Coach Spo directed that offense to go through 2 players primarily, Bam and Jimmy. For the most part, they have kept the turnovers down. The ball has moved spectacularly well. That ball finding the energy of open shooters. And I think the Heat set some sort of record for the percentage they shot on wide open threes in the conference finals. The way they are sharing it and moving it. Look how many backdoor layups Duncan Robinson got in that series against the Celtics. So it's teamwork, it's execution, it's terrific defense and attention to detail, and a superstar in Jimmy Butler, who is so unselfish, so fundamentally sound, and a guy that plays with that kind of competitive fire, but also that high a basketball IQ. He's special. And I think, Heat Nations appreciate him. This is our second trip to the finals in his 4 years there, 3rd trip to the conference finals in his 4 years in Miami. So Heat Nation is appreciating him, and I think he's getting the kind of national respect now that he has worked for his whole career, and he's definitely earned it. I hope he gets it. It's the only thing he plays for, and now he's 4 wins away from becoming, for the first time, an NBA champion.
Look, you knew what you were getting with Jimmy Butler. For the most part, we knew we were getting with Bam Adebayo. Down here, when you watch the Heat, you know the names Gabe Vincent, Caleb Martin, Duncan Robinson, Max Strus. But this year, those guys, it felt like Vincent did, but the rest of them didn't take Caleb Martin was supposed to take a huge step this year, and it felt like he didn't. So you went into these playoffs where the national media really didn't understand the Heat role players. The Heat did, you did. Look, the Heat throughout their history have been great at getting these guys to play above their head and play well. I don't know if you've ever seen a guy go from a nice role player to a freaking star like we've seen Caleb Martin. Like what Caleb Martin has done in front of our eyes from each series. And again, the Heat are really good at this. I'm trying to remember another Heat player that went from, oh, he's really contributing to, oh, thank God he has the ball. Like it literally went from me being scared of Caleb Martin shooting to going, give it to Caleb. Like you wanted Caleb Martin to shoot that ball. He had ice in his veins in this last series. In Game 7, he literally had his career playoff high, and you saw it coming. Like, have you ever seen, even with all the Heat done with role players, a guy ascend to this level in front of the toughest competition as Caleb Martin has?
No, that's a great question, Lubie. No, I think it's one of the great stories we've ever watched unfold right before our eyes. And Caleb, I think a little like Kyle Lowry, accepting of a changing role. Again, willing to do whatever it takes to win. But listen, he came up the hard way, not drafted, cut by Charlotte, a two-way contract to come to Miami. That two-way extended to a real deal. But how far he's come, he had a DNP CD, did not play, coach's decision in Game 7 last year against the Celtics. And he was among the most important players in Game 7 this year. Hey, he played 45 of the 48 minutes. He's become indispensable and invaluable. And remember, he started for a lot of the season. And then Coach Spoelstra took him out of the starting lineup to put Kevin Love in upon Love's acquisition, in late February. He didn't flinch. He didn't pout. He didn't complain. He just produced off the bench, which was the role he excelled in last year. And now, in the series against the Celtics, Spo puts him back into the starting lineup. He was, 2 votes away from being MVP of the conference finals. He was certainly among the most impactful player for Miami. I mean, over 19 points a game, 60% shooting, nearly 50% from 3. You saw the great skill level emerge, a confidence in him that you didn't even know he had that kind of confidence. The shots he was taking and making, and Defo, what I've told Caleb so many times, I've said this to his twin brother Cody, who's been in Miami for this whole playoff run. Cody plays for Charlotte. The thing I admire and respect more about Caleb than any player that I can remember in the history of the franchise. And I only remember saying this about him. I've not used this term on any other player. But what Martin does to make himself so special, equal amounts of athleticism and energy on both ends of the floor every single time he plays. I think he's the Heat's most athletic player. He uses that athleticism and his energy on defense, where he is a big-time stopper and will have to be again against Denver. And now he's become a guy that can get you points in a variety of ways. So he's making himself a lot of money. He is enhancing his reputation, and he's trying to help the Heat do the hardest thing in the world, win an NBA championship.
A real pro, too. I mean, we were talking about you in the context that your professionalism reminds me of the great Chick Hearn, the great late Chick Hearn, who I had a chance to interview a long, long time ago. And I was amazed that he did like a practice of a game before every game after he'd been doing it for like 40 years. He was there at like 3 p.m. calling an imaginary game, Coop, yo-yoing up and down. I mean, I'm like, what is this man doing? He's gone insane. And he said that he always followed that routine. And then, when you put those charts up on social media, I'm like, Jesus, Eric, I was more inclined to just show up, hope a margarita was on the desk, and, start saying, well, the shot clock's at 9. So a very, very, professional approach by Caleb Martin also. And I guess once again, we have to go back to this mysterious Heat culture and say maybe that was part of the reason he was able to cultivate that. One more thing, Pat Riley, I mean, he has to be loving this. I mean, the only thing that could have been better, I loved it that the Boston fans left that arena looking like they had just stepped off the Andrea Gale, on a day cruise. And you're thinking, they looked sick. Riley was kind of, doing the old Red Auerbach, man. He stopped just short of lighting up a cigar. I guess if he could smoke inside, he might have done that. And the only thing that would have been better is if Danny Ainge was still with the Celtics organization. But Riley's got to be loving this. I mean, like never before. That this is his kind of thing, is it not?
Oh, it is. So winning is his thing,
Yeah.
and competing and playing for a championship. Listen, that's the ultimate goal every year for the Heat. And while nobody else believed in it, there were 17 players and a whole coaching staff and basketball operations staff, and even the business side that believed that this team could do it. It goes back to the identification of the kind of talent and character that works in Miami. And then the development of that talent. We've seen it over and over again. But that's why I say the illumination of our culture this year, to me, it's more undeniable than ever before. You know what's funny about the Celtics series? I was anxious before every single game in that series, except the last one. I
Yeah.
mean,
Wow.
even after the Heat won the first two in Boston, I was a nervous wreck for Game 3 because you realize if you lose that one, then all of a sudden the two road wins just didn't carry as much weight. Even at 3-0, there was anxiety because I realized that as soon as Boston wins the game, the series has a chance to change because if it goes 3-1, which it did, and Boston just does what you expect them to do, win a game at home, then that series comes back to Miami 3-2 and a much different series. And of course, they were fortunate to get the Game 6 win. But the reason I was comfortable and confident in Game 7 is because the whole world thought the series was over.
Yes.
And I just felt like if even 1% of that attitude and mentality got into the Celtics' minds, and it's human nature that it would, Miami just blitzed them from the start, thoroughly outplayed them. The Celtics looked a lot like they did in Game 3, in Game 7. They let go of the rope, and
Ugliness.
Miami had the lead since the 4:11 mark of the first
100%.
quarter. You imagine a Game 7 at Boston and only one
No.
lead change. The Heat just dominated.
I thought I saw
One of
the
the
chief
great
fall out of
moments.
the
One of the
rafters.
great
Yeah.
moments in franchises. Listen, we never won a Game 7 on the road
Yeah.
until that game.
Wow.
We never had a playoff series where the Heat won 3 road games
Yeah.
until the conference finals. And the poetic justice of doing to Boston what Boston did to us a year earlier, beat us 3 times at home. Only time in our history that's ever happened. And the painful loss of a Game 7 at home, a perfect payback. And what an incredible way to advance to the NBA Finals for the 7th time.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun to watch that take place, and as we said, the devastating blow to Boston after the Panthers had taken them out was equally satisfying here for a South Florida sports fan. All right, I have to run this by you real quick. I always thank you for your time, but and it's possible we bring home the Larry O'Brien with your beloved Heat. Aaron Rodgers, could it be? 16-1 to win the Super Bowl. The very same number my son is getting on Miami if they can beat Denver. What do you think? Your Jets, do they do something this year, or is this yet another false alarm?
I don't think there's anything false about this. They had a pretty good team last year, other than the quarterback position. Most of that team is back. I think the offensive line will be better. Uh, Going from Zach Wilson to Aaron Rodgers, my God, that's
Step
a
up in company.
seismic upgrade. That is a seismic upgrade. You listen, they haven't been to the playoffs, I think, since 2012. Um, I think they are relevant in a way that they haven't been in a long time. So I'm excited about it and looking forward to it. But right now that's on the back burner for obvious reasons.
All right, yeah, it's like Dellavedova going to Jimmy Butler. I mean, pretty good transition there. Eric, we love you, man. Fine job. When can we catch? I know Ron Rothstein mentioned, and I see you guys in the background of the TNT show. Well, you and John Crotty, you're actually doing some broadcasts from the arenas, are you not?
No, we're just trying to get into the TNT shots.
Everybody does, man. They got everybody crowding around Shaq and company.
The two things we are doing through these playoffs. After the first round, there is no more local TV coverage. So Crotty, myself, Ron Rothstein, Jackson, Amy Audibert, often we're joined at home by Jeremy Taché. We're doing full 1-hour post-game shows
Oh, nice.
on Bally Sports Sun and live always on the Bally Sports app after every playoff game. Crotty and I also, I've been doing this since the late 90s. The Heat asked me to do this a long time ago, and it's become sort of a playoff tradition. I do a fake call of every game that the Heat record. They use it for social media and archival purposes. It's weird. I don't really have any concern how it's used. I'm so happy to do it, whether it gets used or not used. And some people look at me like I'm crazy because I get so into the fake broadcast that we forget that it's not real. And you know what it's done for me, Defo, all these years? I don't even care that nobody's hearing it. I get to do it.
Yes.
So I'm enjoying calling each one of these games, experiencing it with our fan base and our team, and enjoying the ride every second of it. So we look forward to these finals. And Defo, you know the kind of respect and admiration we've had for you over 30 plus years.
Oh, wow,
you are unique. I'm glad you're still on the air, and it's always fun to talk to you.
Well, and we know that feeling about doing what you said was a fake show, because we've been wondering forever, including many program directors in our past. Hey, you got a following or what? I mean, there's nobody out there. Sponsors don't get a call for months. No, I know that feeling well.
Who needs listeners?
We love you, Eric. Thanks, man.
Enjoy the ride.
Be well. And hey, just like we had two teams in the Final Four in college basketball, which I'm still not sure South Florida really understood the magnitude of that. I live a minute from FAU up here in Boca. When they were in the Final Four, there was not one visible sign in Boca Raton that this was going on, but it was incredible. And now to have two teams in the final round, the Panthers and the Heat at the same time, and by the way, the cross enjoyment and respect that the two franchises are showing for each other. The Dolphins have jumped in with their head coach being at games for both teams. This is a great time to be a sports fan down here, and hope it gets one huge level greater in the next couple of weeks.
Got my pots and pans and my fingers crossed for my son. So let's go Heat. Excellent, Eric. Always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you.
Thanks, man. Be well.
Eric Reid, man.
Eric's the best.
Solid pro, man.